Julius Jones' mother thanked a crowd of his supporters outside of Oklahoma State Penitentiary after years of protests. A petition, Oklahoma's governor commuted the death sentence handed down to Julius Jones over murder connected to a 1999 carjacking. Jones and his attorneys were made aware of the decision during what was to be their final meeting before his execution, which was scheduled for today. Jones's sentence has been converted to a life sentence, while many activists and legal experts contest Jones' guilt in the 1999 murder. A condition of his commuted sentence states that he will not be eligible to apply for a pardon or parole for the rest of his life. Joining us to discuss is former prosecutor and defense attorney Charles Coleman. Mr. Coleman, what do you think of this, the commutation, but also the condition placed on it?
Well, Charles, I think that this is a unique situation in terms of the condition that the governor decided to place on commuting Mr. Jones's sentence. On one hand, what we do know is that an innocent man, or a man that is presumed to be innocent by many and who did not receive a fair trial when he was convicted, will not be executed. And so that degree of irreparable harm will be avoided. And so we can all rejoice and give thanks for that. However, given the fact that the governor has now placed this very peculiar note along with this commutation, it doesn't leave many options in terms of him actually getting justice. And what justice would look like would be a fair trial, a retrial, and him being able to actually be heard by a jury of his peers and receive due process, which many believe, including myself, that he was denied upon his initial conviction in 1999.
So what does fighting for justice for Mr. Jones look like now? If hands are tied in some way by this commutation, what is there left to do?
Well, it's an interesting question, Charles, because I feel like this is a space where there's an intersection between the justice system and the political system. The governor in this case essentially did what was politically expedient for him. On one hand, he stopped the execution, but then on the other hand, to make sure that he didn't all the way outright offend some of his other voters, he placed this very peculiar condition on the commutation. And so I think that it's going to take additional pressure and continued pressure through the political arena to first have this additional condition removed, which is peculiar, and then continue to elect officials who are going to place pressure on governors' offices in the future, because it's not going to happen with the current sitting governor. It's very unlikely that he's going to decide to do that. But if you have pressure from a new DA, if you have pressure from a new prosecutor, if you have pressure from other people, right, it is possible that the political system may be leaning on the justice system in a way that gets Mr. Jones a new trial.
So that would lead to my second question, or my next question, which was, if you got a new governor, could this commutation be amended to remove the clause that forbids him to kind of appeal for parole or what have you?
Well, to my knowledge, this is an issue of first impression, and so it's hard to say, but as we have learned in today's world of politics and law, I'm of the mindset that you do it until you tell me that I can't. And so that would be one thing that I would propose. But it's very important to understand that even if a future governor were to somehow find a way to remove this provision of the commutation, you would still need a district attorney or a prosecutor who was willing to retry this case. It is not a guaranteed mandate that simply because he applies for a retrial that it would be granted. And so even with that, there's a very uphill battle in terms of getting a prosecutor to decide that this is a case that they want to retry again for whatever reason. And so it's very important that viewers understand that there are multiple steps to this. Obviously, the step with the governor and getting that removed is probably one of the biggest. But shortly after that, you have an issue with respect to the prosecutor, who will have to then decide what reason they would have for retrying this case, which in and of itself poses a number of different challenges.
Wait, are you saying that a new prosecutor could decide to retry the case and it would get around the clause in this commutation?
No, I'm saying that the first thing that would have to happen is that the governor would have to remove the clause. And then the second
Got you.
thing that would have to happen is that a new prosecutor, even with the clause removed, that does not guarantee Mr. Jones a new trial. So even if the clause got
Right.
removed, it would still require a new prosecutor who was going to decide to retry that case, because one is not automatically dependent of the other. It doesn't follow that it's automatically going to be a retrial simply because that clause was removed. It simply gives Mr. Jones the opportunity to seek a new trial or a retrial. It doesn't mandate that the prosecutor would have to grant it.
Does this commutation put wind in the sails of activists because they can now see that pressure works and may be able to kind of replicate this in other cases that may be as deserving as this one?
I absolutely think it does. I think that we all know that statistically speaking, the death penalty has been increasingly problematic for communities of color, particularly for Black and Latino men who are executed at much higher rates, proportionately speaking, than many of their white counterparts who are in jail and on death row. And so, for many people who have been fighting this fight and understand the unreliability of the criminal justice system in so many different ways, this is the type of energy, the type of spark that we need in order to see and think about how many other Julius Jones are there? How many other commutations are we going to be able to fight for people who we are not entirely sure are guilty of the things that they have been convicted for? And so, because we know that we cannot reverse those ultimate changes once someone has been executed, I think seeing something like this gives people a different level of energy, a different level of engagement, and hopefully we will see this reinvigorated across the country.
Charles Coleman, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your time.